Well, and another one of the early photographs was of a portrait of Washington, was it not?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
And how did that come? I understand that was extremely popular, and people had copies of the photograph, and they took pictures of people holding the photograph. And
yeah, Washington got around photographically, which is funny because he died 40 years before photography was even invented.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting to me because it never occurred to me, knowing what I knew about the history of photography, that Washington would be a big player. But
Yeah.
he was. And I think the reason for that, and what I talk about in the book, is that he was such an important figure. He was really the most important American. He was,
they were worshipful about him.
Right, literally.
Yes.
And well into the late 19th century, he was kind of the dominant figure. And so to make a photograph of a painting of Washington or a bust of Washington, that was as close as you could get to the man himself.
And before photography, you had to travel to a museum or someplace to actually see a portrait of him.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And you might have had popular, prints in your home, but the idea of having a photograph of a person who was never photographed, to me, what that really pointed out was how much photography needed that authority of the presidents.
Yeah.
They were so bound up with each other that to become a really recognizable public art, photography turned to the most popular subject, which was at that time George Washington.
And the photo that was reproduced the most was of an unfinished painting. Am I right? It was.
Yes, there's a famous unfinished head and bust, I guess, of George Washington, a painting that was the model for a number of paintings, including a famous painting that hangs in the White House today called the Lansdowne Portrait. That head of Washington by Gilbert Stuart is also the head that's on our dollar bills, so we see it every time we look at our money.
Yeah, we're still reproducing it.
Yeah, exactly. And what was important about photographing that portrait, I think, for the photographers, was that was a portrait that was known to be painted from life. So again, that was the closest you could get to a photograph of Washington.